afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Beer 30 Live. We have moved.
We have moved.
I'm sitting here around the table with lovely Mary Bradbury Jones.
Hello.
With Jamie Whitley.
Hello.
With Shane Barboy Corsetti.
Dig it.
And with Jamie's... Jamie, you brought your offspring.
Yes. And it's hard to tell because they're so beautiful. You wouldn't expect that somebody like me could produce such quality. But
Not a chance. I think there's still some question.
But I want it to be known herefore, too, that I can produce quality. So if anybody's struggling in that area, I am clearly a known commodity.
I'm gonna go ahead and rack this up to Jamie's wife. And
I am sure that there is extreme quality in me, and I can share as you are willing to pay. So anytime.
Jamie Whitley on the market. Do I hear $1?
Going once.
It'd be the first. It would be the first time Jamie would not have to pay.
Oh! Ouch. Okay, try the veal. I'm out.
Oh my God.
I'm gonna put the mic down. I'm going.
Man, I just had a tot that was so hot I couldn't express my love of that comment.
So where are we?
So we have moved. We've moved to the McMinimans establishment. We are at John Barleycorn's in Tigard.
Thank you, John Barleycorn.
Thank you, John
hosting
Barleycorn.
us
and they haven't asked one question about what we're doing here in the corner with all this ridiculous equipment.
And food.
And food.
Beer.
All the fried food they serve. We've ordered 2 of them.
Well, man, maybe we ought to tell our listeners a little bit about McMinimans. And if you're not from the Northwest, you're not aware of who they are.
I don't know anything about McMinimans, so I think you should do the honors.
Do you know much, Shane? You probably do.
Well, the
Bring it
McMinimum
on,
brothers,
buddy.
and they brew their own beer, and they've got a number of locations around the Portland area.
Yeah.
And a lot of it is they take old historical buildings and refurbish them, and so everything's like an old barn.
And so what is
Like
this old
we're in an
building?
old
You guys
church.
know?
Yeah, we're in an old church.
We're in an old church,
Yeah.
and they got old elementary schools and
Yes.
old hotels and
Old taverns. I know out in the Hillsborough area they've got an old tavern that they've redone, and they have great beer.
and they've got the Crystal Ballroom downtown, which
Yes.
is great too.
Right.
Yes.
I had no idea this was a church. I've been in here
Well,
how many times?
I'm
And I
guessing.
just-
I'm just-
I
yeah.
looked up.
It's gotta be.
That's got to be a church. There's no way it's anything but.
Yeah, it's very cool. Very cool
There's something so
restaurant
sort of
chain, I think.
ecclesiastically appropriate, isn't there, that they would take a church and turn it into a bar?
Yes.
And I mean that liquor is
it
right
was
underneath that rose window over there.
If it was a Catholic church, being Catholic, it's very appropriate.
It's go time.
I'm sure the Baptists are turning over. And
Yes.
great.
But
Here's
McMinimans
such a
does a
thing.
great job, and they make great beer, and it's really good to be here.
To
This
expand
is
our
nice.
horizons a little
Yes.
bit, well, we left the Ram begrudgingly, I think,
Well, Pete, you got us thrown out.
because I wanted to share my love for. No, we left because it's just
Their
hard to
location.
get in and out
Location
of.
is tough.
It's beautiful. The location is great, really unbeatable, right on the river, and they also have great fried food. But man, this is so much easier for all of us to
Yes.
get to and to meet, and so
All right.
that's what we have a guest.
We do.
And we're very excited about this because we've got all the beer and yet he is so sobering. Mary, would you like to do the honors?
I will. Our guest today is actually Philip Jones, my husband.
Hello.
Hello, Phil. Hello.
And Phil is working on his doctorate at Portland State University. He is basically ABD at this point, and
Wait, you got to explain what that means.
ABD, all but doctorate, or all but dissertation.
Yes,
All right.
So meaning he's done all his classwork.
I thought you said
He's-
ADD.
Sorry, no,
That too.
He is definitely not ADD. Let me just tell you. And he's finished all his coursework. He's passed his written exams, his oral exams, and now has pretty much completed his research in the field. Now it's all in the lab as he works through it and then writes his dissertation.
Writing.
What are you studying, Phil?
Evolutionary genetics is an umbrella, anyway.
Wow.
So smarter than us.
Well, that kind of goes without saying. But I mean, what does that mean? Give me a practical.
Well, I can tell you specifically what I'm studying is like the coevolution between Hantavirus and its host, the deer mouse, specifically kind of here in the west and in the Pacific Northwest, even more specifically. And it's something that hantavirus is something maybe people have heard of, but may not be all that familiar with. It was originally found in North America in '93 down in the Four Corners region when there was a big outbreak and quite a few fatalities. And it was characterized then as being hantavirus, a form of hantavirus. Without getting too technical, hantavirus is actually a genus. And so there are several different types of hantaviruses. And the one they discovered here in the West is sin nombre virus, the name they applied to it anyway down there in that Four Corners region. And it's been somewhat assumed that hantavirus was present all throughout North America because its recognized host is pretty ubiquitous throughout North America. But then it had never been characterized or discovered or anything like that in Oregon at all.
And you decided to go hunting for it.
Yes, I did.
That's insane.
I spent 3 years of 5 days a week before sunrise out in the forest.
Looking for deer mice.
Yeah, trapping mice and taking blood samples and
aspire to greatness.
Yeah.
So, I mean, do we
Rain or
have,
shine.
do we have this weird risk of this virus going loose and everybody bleeding from their eyes and dying?
The risk is pretty low, and the risk has always been there. It hasn't changed since we discovered it, obviously. It's been there all along. There have only been 8 cases in Oregon to date that have been recognized anyway. There certainly were more before anyone ever knew anything about hantavirus and what to chalk it up to. But it's a fairly low risk. What happens is it's contained within any excreta from the mouse, so urine, saliva, blood, feces, anything like that. You're out hiking a trail, or worse yet, cleaning out your garage or your barn or your attic or your basement or something, and
you reach into it.
You encounter some droppings, and it actually gets stirred into the air, and becomes aerosolized, and you inhale it in through your lungs, and that's how you contract it. So
it's terrifying, and I don't know how he's not a complete hypochondriac, or maybe he is. We'll have to ask Mary.
Yeah, getting worse by
the day. Awesome. So we are definitely going to talk about that. Let's do the news briefly, and get back into the meat of terror and fear and mice feces.
Well, speaking of terror and fear,
let's start.
Go ahead, Mary.
Well, I think something interesting that has kind of hit the... Oh, you want to talk about that first?
I mean, it's in the news.
You're right. You're right.
I'm just saying. Okay, so we should raise a glass to poor Anna Nicole.
Anna Nicole Smith.
Anna Nicole, we're sorry we found you. We didn't actually find you. But we're sorry you were found. Yeah, it is a tragedy. It ended badly. It just ended badly.
She was a train wreck waiting to happen. I mean, really, her whole life is...
I'd be interested to see. I haven't looked at it, though. But, she really idolized Marilyn Monroe.
Yeah.
She did.
And I'm wondering if there was, when did Marilyn Monroe die? Like, what age?
I mean, gosh.
Oh, I don't know.
I'm just wondering if there's some sort of mirroring there.
She didn't make it to 40.
Marilyn Monroe-esque
and
type of thing.
Anna Nicole was 39, yeah. So I'm just saying, I haven't looked,
But no, they're making lots. I mean, if you're reading, in the news right now, they're making lots of comparisons because she was very
It was bound to happen. It was only a matter of time.
Yeah.
Really, given her
Well, it's a matter of time for all of us.
Her life,
her
lifestyle, and the recent events of her family, and catastrophic. When you're living it, I mean, that's just catastrophic. And so, whatever happened
to me, what is just so, I think, sad about the situation is that loss of the child was so devastating. Loss of her son,
her oldest son,
was so devastating that she couldn't handle it, and and she's got this baby that's 5 months old, but obviously
a baby that they don't know who the father is, or there's debate about who the father is.
But I mean, it would be hard to lose your child like that, and it's only been a few months since that happened.
Yeah.
And
didn't he die right as the new baby was born too?
Exactly.
In the hospital with her.
Yeah. So
crazy.
So whatever happened, but Anna Nicole, our condolences to those who
the Nicole Smiths.
To the Nicole Smiths.
Hey, all right, on to happier things. What about these Democrats wanting huge planes to fly between the East Coast and the West Coast? What is up?
You were going to bring
Here comes the finger. Did you notice that? Oh, there it comes.
Finger wag.
Okay, go ahead, set it up so I can knock it down.
Tell me about what's her name? Pelosi wanting this big giant plane.
No,
what's her name? Pelosi. Look at you.
No, she did not.
She wants a big plane to fly back and forth from the East Coast to the West Coast. She wants concierge service.
And now Miss Pelosi's publicist,
isn't
Mary Bradbury Jones.
Isn't she the second in command?
She's the third.
Well, after vice president and then her, right?
Okay, and Denny Hassard had the same thing. This all started after 9/11. The House Sergeant of Arms, who is a bipartisan position, this is their job, went to Denny Hassard at the time and said, "Oh, no, not my phone." And said...
The Sergeant at Arms said,
okay,
"Oh, no, not my phone."
Not my phone. Sorry, my phone was ringing. Anyway, went to Denny Hassard, and because of 9/11 and being third person in line, that they had to start having security whenever he flew back and forth, right? So he would fly back and forth nonstop from D.C. to Illinois. Now, when Pelosi became Speaker, House of Sergeant of Arms went to SAR, said, "We got to set this up for you." And one of the issues with security is going down to refuel for gasoline. And if you're going to take down a plane, your best opportunity to do it is at landing and takeoff, not flying at 40,000 or 30,000 feet. So what they set up was you've got to have a plane that can go from Washington all the way to California without touching down. It was not Pelosi asking for it, demanding for it, any of that. But of course, right-wing media is all over the place accusing her of being big money and Democrat,
in her defense,
money, wasting money.
I think it's overblown, and I think they're trying to make her out as some kind of scapegoat. And I don't think she probably hasn't done anything wrong. But.
And I mean, hello, Condi Rice flies on those things, and what does it hurt us if she gets killed? I mean, no offense.
Whoa!
Wow.
What I mean is,
your liberal spin on it makes it seem so sage and wise.
Meaning she's not.
That was a very compassionate.
She does not have a direct line to being the president. So meaning, why? I mean, she's not a person that most likely anybody would want to try to take her plane down.
Right.
Yeah, I think it is overblown, and I think the right is trying to spin something that's really not there in the overall statement.
And
well, you can tell because their statements are all like, if you give Pelosi a plane, it's going to be covered with shackles on the wall and lots of leather and vinyl everywhere, because that's the kind of lifestyle she lives in her fruity California.
How do you know?
Yeah.
I don't know.
And that's wrong?
Of course, I've never been to your basement either. And that's wrong.
You were pointing at Shane when you said that, of course. All right, so what else is going on in the news, Mary?
That's it. That's all. Well,
That's all
what else?
new?
Well,
That was the big
turn.
news?
I had a big one. I got a big
I was
one.
responding to
Oh.
Jamie. I wasn't.
Oh, Mary, you want to go ahead?
No, you go ahead.
Well, I was going to bring up the John Amici, the NBA player, who came out of the closet. He's a retired basketball player in the NBA, and he came out as the first NBA player as a gay
He was
male.
lanced.
He was lanced in many ways.
Well, he
So
came
what are
out
the
on his own,
implications
right?
of that?
He did. He came out as well. He's writing a book, and of course, in the book, he talks about coming out. But the idea is,
Is he going to name other players?
No, he's not going to do that. It's more
My
of this
love affair with Michael Jordan.
yeah, but I mean, it's very courageous for a male athlete to come out in this very testosterone-driven environment. He's only the second one of the four major sports to come out, and that was an NFL player who actually went to Oregon State.
Dude, I would argue that it's not a lot of courage. Honestly, he was a journeyman player. Only played for like 4 years.
He played 8 years. He had an 8-year career.
And he's like 40 years old. He never made a lot of money. I mean, so it could be just publicity.
So, but he makes a lot of money. Made a lot of money as an NBA player. How would this further his career to do this?
But as a journeyman player, he probably didn't make tons and tons.
Yeah, what's the minimum salary? $2.3 million a year for an NBA player.
That's a lot of money.
No, I don't know. I don't think.
But what I
understand what you're saying.
It's a huge step. So
Isn't it a big step?
I think it's a big step
for
no
any
matter
man
what.
to come out and say something like that?
it is. But I mean, in an American society where it's, I'm a tough guy. I play sports. Don't touch me.
What did you say? How many professional athletes have come out?
He's the second.
And let me tell you, there's
of the
more
four
than just two.
of the four major sports.
Of the four major sports, so
Who
basketball,
was the other one?
lacrosse,
Some
field
football
hockey,
Some football player,
and
he had a
squash.
6-year career. So I
No,
don't.
only on the East Coast for you preppy boys where you play squash and lawn darts and all that stuff.
Field hockey.
Yeah, exactly.
Hello, rugby.
Yeah. Where polo is like the
Rugby
big
is
giant
not
thing.
a women's
rugby
sport.
as a tough.
I never actually played rugby,
Well,
but I know
that's
many
right.
tough East Coasters who played rugby.
Yeah, that's a tough. That is not.
Yeah, you don't play rugby in knickers like you guys are playing lawn darts over there at your private preppy school.
That's true. God, I love lawn
How did
darts.
you just take
Yes.
this? so well.
Well, because he
over
has
and
to. I
over.
mean, he has nothing to back up. All right, I want to
All right,
talk
so, yeah.
about Obama for a second.
Because
Okay.
he's clean.
Yes, he's fresh.
Man.
clean.
Joe Biden,
Here's
way
what
to
they're
go,
gonna
sir.
do. They're going to announce your presidency, your run for presidency, by saying that one of your opponents
Yeah.
is clean.
Yeah, well, one
And
of
articulate.
them's clean and articulate,
Yes,
and a storybook,
exactly.
man.
Oh,
and
What is
one
it-
of them's an idiot.
what
The
is
other
it-
one's another idiot. I mean,
Right.
Joe, come on.
What does it mean when someone's articulate?
I don't know.
I don't know. Are they
When
welcome
you're-
at this table?
Now, however, when you're talking about an African American, what does it mean when they're articulate? Does that mean that they're
And
liked
clean.
by America?
Here's where I was going with this. So I'm very disappointed in the left talking about Obama, who
Now,
is
wait,
a
whoa,
hold on.
whoa.
Not,
Who
I
of
shouldn't
the
say the whole
left?
left, but there
Thank
are
you.
certain people who is a legitimate candidate and appears to have a lot of good qualifications. And
Absolutely.
people standing up in the African American community and saying things like, well, he's not black enough, is the exact quote.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at that thinking, so now is there a litmus test for knowing how black you're supposed to be or white you're
And
supposed to
tell
be?
the audience who said that.
It's like Jesse Jackson and Al Sharpton and those folks. It's just, quite frankly, it's disgusting to try and measure somebody on that scale and somehow say, well, they don't represent me because they're not enough of a certain thing like that. It's crazy.
Well, I mean, I would
Makes me
agree
sick
with
to my
that,
stomach.
and I will also say though that those two individuals do not represent. I mean, they are not the left.
Well, I don't know. I mean,
Well, they're
Jesse
not. I mean,
Jackson's a
that's-
very popular figure, and I don't know.
Yeah,
it's
but
just-
being
it's
very popular and
frustrating.
being representative of the left and not
It's
some
two different
whack
things.
job.
Yeah, it's just very frustrating
Yeah.
to me. That's
But
all.
no, I mean, I would agree. And if I was Barack Obama or an African American in this country, I would be frustrated
I would
by
be
a
offended.
statement like that.
Yeah, I'd be
So-
offended.
Truly.
So
But by the same token, back to Biden. Hillary Clinton was he said some rude things about her. He says rude things about Edwards. I mean,
he's always been that way.
Yeah.
you
always
guys.
been. He's abrasive
this isn't
and
anything
rude.
new.
So
Honestly, I'm trying to figure out who from the Republican Party is legitimately going to run for president. I mean, there
Yeah.
really aren't any strong candidates.
Well, not yet. You'll have more.
Senator McCain fell asleep during the President's State of the Union address. I mean, come on.
It's not looking
he's
good.
been past Bush's Rolodex, so he's most likely the man they're propping up to be your
Man,
candidate.
I don't
so.
know. It's just
Anyway.
Edwards buys this huge house. I'm for the people, and they buys one of the most expensive houses in the world. I mean,
yes, he's
Well,
really
but,
is. He's
hey, come
helping
on,
the
you
working
know how
poor.
it works with taxes. If you sell one house and you got to turn around, you got to eventually, within a certain period of time, buy a house that
Move up in the world?
Well, you've got to use that money, or you have to be taxed on it. He's
Yeah.
not doing anything different than any other, individual who's made money on their houses. I mean, that doesn't make him a bad guy just because he bought a big house.
no, but it sends a bad signal.
Why?
It looks bad.
Why?
To the common folks, because then you can't really relate as well. You should buy a little tiny shack and develop.
Because common folks probably don't understand the concept of a 1038 exchange. I mean, it's
Well, but-
the tax implications are lost on the vast majority of people who aren't
you
invested
look
in
at,
real estate.
Okay, but you look at one act, buying the house, and not the other 35 acts that show and
Yeah.
prove how he is for
Well,
the
that is-
working poor. I mean, give me a break.
But that is true, and we focus on one negative thing, right?
well, the media does that to us with their
But
constant
because-
That's
drilling.
our role.
Well,
propaganda.
it's the vast
We're not
right-wing
the media.
conspiracy.
Oh, we are.
We are?
Look at you.
Oh, my
you're
God.
you're all
Right-wing
media.
conspiracy.
Okay, so speaking of right-wing conspiracies, we gotta talk about the Super Bowl.
Oh,
First of
okay.
all,
What?
was that an
Well-
underwhelming, lousy game?
I liked it. I liked the game.
Really?
Good game. I liked watching Rex Grossman just wilt under pressure.
I thought it was.
I was happy to see him do that too, because he's
Yeah.
the only quarterback in the history of the NFL to come out of a game with a negative quarterback rating.
Now I want to be. I'm interested to see if we go back to the New Year's show
Yeah.
and we made predictions. I can't remember who I predicted. but
I predicted Indianapolis.
I think I did too, but I said Saints in there as well.
I had Bears
It'd be nice to
going.
go
Well,
back
we'll have
and
to go
see.
back and find that. I said the Colorado Avalanche. So, but
and that shows your.
well, I
Right.
actually manned up this year, and I watched the whole game and the 7 hours of
But
pregame
Pete,
footage.
you watched it for
Man
the commercials.
No, I didn't actually.
Mr.
But
Media
speaking
Guy.
of,
Yeah, you
the
know,
commercials
you know you did.
sucked. Not only did they
horrible.
suck, they were terrifying and disturbing on many levels, except for the rock, paper,
I
scissors
still
one.
have nightmares about that whole Snickers thing. I do, man.
Snickers and the GM thing where the poor robot commits suicide,
Yeah.
throws itself off a bridge. Oh,
Yeah.
give me a break.
Come on, it's a robot.
I like the beard. I like the beard comb
'cause you-
over.
Yeah, that was good.
Yeah.
That was
But yeah,
good.
the whole Snickers thing, I'm not even. Ugh.
Okay,
but
Shane had a
the-
problem with the halftime show too.
I did too.
Why?
Because last year when we had the
Paul McCartney?
You didn't have a boob. I mean,
okay, well the year before, whatever it was,
There are
when we
never
had-
enough boobs in the halftime
when
show.
we had the
Let's say
wardrobe
that.
malfunction,
There was definitely a boob today.
there was this
There's
whole
that.
big thing, and people we had congressional meetings and all hearings, and well, we're going to tape delay everything, and blah 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 blah, and then we have Prince up there with his guitar and face it, phallic symbol, and nobody really said anything.
Well, and that's the whole point.
I'm
This
like,
article is about people saying something, the controversy that's brewing over Prince, and what I like to affectionately call Guitar Penis Gate after Nipplegate 2 years ago. The issue that I have, and they have this
Hey,
picture.
GPG.
Jamie
have
brought
this
up
picture.
the penis, being this whole phallic thing.
Well,
anyway.
we have to. No,
2 shows ago.
Seriously, the issue with Prince is, gosh, you put Prince on stage, and now you're surprised that the guy is exuding sexuality. Why would you
He
be
did what he
surprised there?
always does, right?
Because
People are
he
wound
has
up over that?
exuded
Yes.
sexuality for the last 30
wearing
years
an
of his
Aunt
music
Jemima
career.
rag.
This
What
guy is known. He is known for taking his clothes off on stage. This was tame.
Yeah,
So give me
okay,
a break.
My
I mean,
my beef was play your own dang music.
He's got, a massive catalog of music, and he
does,
did
and
he
he's
did a lot of
great stuff.
covers.
Everybody, you playing everybody's covers.
But the guy's 48 years old, and he plays every bit as well as he did when he was 25. I mean, that was an awesome
rocks.
show.
I mean,
he
he's
really
good.
does. He was awesome.
I don't know what what he did was really no different than the wardrobe malfunction. I don't know what the big beef's about it. It's crazy to me that I don't know.
You notice it was not MTV Productions that
It's all
produced the
pure-
thing.
Okay,
Everett still
I've
came
got
out as
one more
sex.
headline I
One
want to
more,
get in
okay.
before we're moving on. Just
Oh,
because
man.
this is interesting. We now have that we've discovered that Iran in 2003 approached our administration, and they offered to essentially, take care of Hezbollah, work towards peace with Israel and Palestine, take a major role in Iraq, helping to solve the issues there, and stop their nuclear program if we would recognize them and be allies with them. And our administration said no.
Yeah. That's not surprising.
Because you know how that discussion went. It was, okay, Iran's coming to the table, and they want to be friends. And we say, it's really risky to be friends, because if we're friends, then that creates another sort of renewed sense of stability in the Middle East, and really we benefit far
don't
more
like
with
that.
having instability in the Middle East.
Dude, that's come on.
We
that's
can't rape.
cynical.
We can't sit and
Of
and
all
show
people,
up. Yeah.
you, Whitley, are calling me
No,
cynical?
No, I think that's a very cynical view. I think what it is Bush is driven by ideology, and it's just out of pure ideology. He can't do that. It's not about creating instability for his own long-term gain or whatever. It's
Are you kidding?
He can't recognize
Is that
them.
a joke? Is there a punchline?
No, I'm serious.
What about the
It's-
fact that Iran was moving towards democracy before Bush put them into the axis of evil and alienated them and ostracized them and pushed them further to the radical ideology that they're exuding now?
I honestly don't think it was about trying to create instability. He sees things in such black and white terms that there's no gray, and you're either for us or against us type of thing. And so I really don't think it's about stability or instability. It's truly for him almost a religious zealous. You're either on this side or that side.
I think
And
it's
he
very
doesn't-
much a religious
and he doesn't
zealotry
see
that's
it
coming
any
out,
other
absolutely,
way. He
categorically.
doesn't see the middle. I don't think he's capable of seeing the middle.
I think politically he's capable of seeing the middle, but he doesn't operate politically.
Absolutely. It's all about...
Well, and what about his
With us or
administration?
against us?
I mean, Bob Ney went to Karl Rove. They had a huge fight over this. And, Bob Ney, obviously, being a person who used to live in Iran, speaks Farsi. Bob Ney was trying to push Karl Rove. We got to go to the table with these folks. Diplomacy is the answer. They don't want diplomacy because you don't make money off of diplomacy.
Well, I don't know if that's it. I don't know. I guess we have to move on.
We do have to move on. But
Okay,
anyway,
we've been-
and
oh my
you know,
goodness.
and
The
you,
board is
you
up.
can't pull up with a truck full of cash and just throw it out to contractors like they did. And now we have a missing $12 billion.
You
in
could to
Iraq.
me.
Man, I wish I'd have been there. I'd be following that truck.
And mind you, none of our soldiers got the cash. Only the contractors who make about in 1 month what a soldier makes in a year.
Yeah, no, I know.
And they support the troops. Okay, I'm off my rant.
I know. I've thought about. I had to figure out how to move there and work for a year. And get out.
Honest to God.
Yeah, tell me about it.
I mean, you can make about $15,000-$20,000 a month,
Sign me up.
and you don't pay taxes on it. Okay.
Do you see what he's doing?
He
Shane,
is,
our
I
producer,
know,
is
I know,
spazzing
I
out
know.
over here.
Okay. All
All
right.
because you and your last word syndrome here.
Sorry.
Liberal last wordism. That was a
Try
joke.
living with her.
You know.
All right.
So,
Yeah,
so we're
yes,
moving
that-
on. We got to
that's
talk
what it
about.
is.
We got to talk about this. So tell Phil. You started talking about it a little bit earlier. Tell us about the role of your research. What is the how'd you get into this, and what does it mean for you? What are you solve? What world problem are you solving here for us?
No pressure.
And when will we know you're done?
Yeah, that's a good question. To start with the beginning of that, how I got into this particular exact subject, I kind of fell into it a little bit. I've always been interested in kind of host-parasite kind of relationships, evolutionarily and that kind of thing. And I came here with the idea of studying this thing called whirling disease in salmonids that affects salmon and trout and has wiped out trout populations all through the Rocky Mountains and the western U.S.
Whirling disease.
Yes.
Okay.
And it just so happened through a whole litany of events that it turned out that the guy I was going to study with left the university, and I wasn't able to pursue that route. And so I found this alternative where I was able to stick with that kind of host-parasite kind of relationship and study this with my current boss, Dr. Luis Ruedas at Portland State. Sorry. And just from there, just took off with it. He had studied with University of New Mexico and then was with the CDC when those original Hantavirus outbreaks occurred and was neck deep in
Well,
that.
and I think that you need to expand on that. I mean, down in New Mexico, it was something like 15 to 18 young people just dropped dead one
I
day.
remember that.
I mean,
like
it was,
on a reservation or
It
something.
was.
Yeah.
Right,
It was.
yeah.
Quite a few of them were. The first ones were Native Americans,
Yeah.
and they were actually at their high school. I don't want to say prom, but one of their dances anyway.
Yeah.
And one young man actually literally fell over on the dance floor. And he was a cross country runner, very fit, very healthy young man, and turned out he had this new type of hantavirus, and he ultimately died. He was the first casualty from it.
How does it manifest in people? What happens?
Ultimately, the disease that it creates is called Hantavirus pulmonary syndrome. At least that's in the Western Hemisphere. It creates a different disease in the Eastern Hemisphere because they're slightly different viruses. So what it does is you start out with some flu symptoms, and then within 24 hours you get this pulmonary edema, essentially where the capillary network in your lungs becomes very, very leaky, and you very, very rapidly basically drown in your own cellular fluid
Lovely.
within a day or so.
Within a day.
Do you worry about catching this with all the mice you're picking up
Absolutely.
and stuff?
Well, we take great precaution, very great precaution.
You're in the full bunny suit, the hazmat.
Yeah. It was kind of it's kind of funny stories of all the field work we do out, collecting the mice and drawing blood samples where we're being directly exposed to it as we're handling the mice. We're out there wearing suits and respirators and all of that in the middle of the woods, and a hiker happens by and they tend to pick up their pace when they see us sitting over under a tree in these hazmat suits and respirators. So
Do we as common folks at home have anything to worry about? We find a mouse. You get a mouse in your kitchen, and
you come across droppings, and you definitely want to take precaution in that the standard approach of sweeping and that kind of thing is the last thing you should ever do, because that's going to stir it into the air where you're going to inhale it. So what you want to do is actually spray it down with bleach water, let it soak in for a couple of minutes, and then just wipe it up and throw those paper towels, for instance, that you wipe that up with into a Ziploc bag, seal that up, and send it off into the trash. That's really all you need to do for the most part. Often people are exposed to it in cleaning out barns and garages and things, like I said before, when they're sweeping up and cleaning up and not even thinking about it.
So what are we accomplishing by studying this? A cure for it?
Well, so far, vaccines, for instance, those, vaccines being drugs that are administered sort of pre-exposure that will set up your immune system to give you resistance to this, will Actually, so far to this point, vaccines have been ineffective for hantavirus.
And what's the mortality rate now?
The mortality rate is about 40%. When they first discovered it in 93 and 94, it was up around 80% of every person that contracted it was passing away.
Was that because lack of health care where it was caught?
No, it's more so really a lack of recognition from the healthcare people that just didn't know what they were coming up against, and because it was not known in the Western Hemisphere at all.
So what that says is if you catch it,
starts off with the common cold,
Yeah, you
so
think you
the
have a cold.
person doesn't think to go to the hospital or call a doctor.
Well, now I'm all
either.
freaked out. So if I start having a little sniffle or something, and and a headache, and am I screwed? I mean,
Headache, myalgia, high fever, those kinds of things are the early symptoms of it, which are very flu-like symptoms, and so that's where that can be misleading. And so, that's the risk that's there. Is you think you've just got the flu, and a day later you're at death's
dead.
door. Yeah.
And now, you guys, how many parts around the city? Where all did you guys trap and collect mice?
We collected specimens from 5 specific locations very intensively around the Portland metro in green spaces where people are ordinarily going out and hiking and that kind of thing and getting out into nature. So we were at Forest Park with a location there, and we had one at Tryon Creek State Park.
these are all places where you found it
Yes.
Every spot
in
had it,
Forest
didn't it?
Park.
Uh-huh. Oh, yeah, a lot.
So
Forest Park.
if I have somebody who I don't like a whole lot,
Send them
could
to
I
Forest Park barefoot.
capture some mice and drop them off at their place? I mean,
I'm not going to condone that.
all right, that's fair enough.
Okay, so you said you had 5 places. I
Yeah.
got to hear them all because I think one of them's by my house.
And
Well,
it's your basement.
As I mentioned before, it really is everywhere.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
So don't want to create a scare here, but Forest Park, Tryon Creek State Park were the 2 I already mentioned. Tualatin River National Wildlife Refuge down near Sherwood in that area is where we had another one of our sites. We also had at the top of Powell Butte. A lot of people spend a lot of time out at Powell Butte hiking and biking.
Oh, but I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Well, I'm thinking about New Mexico, and you're talking about it becoming airborne. So I'm just thinking about that hot, dry environment where there's more dust versus here in Oregon
Excellent
where we
point.
don't have that.
Excellent point.
That maybe contributed.
Absolutely, and that's why they have so many more cases in the Southwest than we do here.
Yeah, that makes sense.
As I mentioned earlier, we've only had like 8 cases here in the Pacific Northwest. Because of our wet environment, it tends to keep it down.
Yeah.
Not to mention that in that moist environment, you have more bacteria living as well, which, without going into specifics, actually release these compounds into their little microenvironment around them and actually break down things like that. And so they actually help us out in that regard.
Well, with global warming, then it's only a matter of time before it spreads here.
Till we dry out and we're
exactly. Yeah.
And now, doesn't it behoove the mouse to actually have hantavirus?
Well, it's been shown that any mammal can catch it, but humans are the only species that are adversely affected by it, where it's actually pathogenic.
Well, isn't that just typical?
Yeah. You know what? Your dog, your cat, or whatever goes out and encounters this in the wild, they're gonna expel it from their system through their immunity pretty rapidly within a day or two. It turns out there's some preliminary research anyway that the deer mice are actually healthier with it. They can't really pin down the exact genetics at this point yet, but they actually have improved respiratory function and increased, as a result of that, increased muscle mass and that kind of thing, where then they have longer longevity in the wild and all that kind of thing as a result of carrying the hantavirus. Because when they contract it from one of their neighbors, they carry it for life. They never do actually get rid of it. So they become a lifelong reservoir for the virus.
Did you say earlier before we came on the air, I know part of your background is evolution and those sorts of things. And so how does this, where does this come from over a period of time? And
the virus itself?
Yeah.
The name Hantavirus comes from the Hantan River Valley in Korea, where it was first discovered. It was, in fact, during the Korean War, we had a lot of soldiers die from this renal syndrome, where the kidneys were shutting down on these soldiers, and we didn't know why.
And that was the hantavirus?
And it was a hantavirus that is this strain that resides in southeastern Asia. And the virus was named from the Hantan Valley, became Hantavirus. And the research is showing, and that's part of what I'm doing, is that as rodents to use it, just a common term, moved up through the Siberian region and across the Bering Land Bridge, roughly about 10 to 12 million years ago, and into North America. We didn't have rodents in North America 10 to 12 million years ago. As they moved over into North America, they brought hantavirus along with them. And then they're moving into this new region where there are no rodents, and they, over, of course, thousands and millions of years, radiate into all these new species, carrying the virus with them. And the virus itself also differentiates into new strains of the virus. There are as many as about 36 different strains of hantavirus in the Western Hemisphere that have been characterized to this point, with somewhere in the mid-20s or so of those that are actually pathogenic to humans. So there are actually some hantavirus strains that don't cause disease, and we really don't even know why yet.
Now, and can I toot your horn, that you guys have possibly found a new strain of the virus?
That's what it's looking like. Through the sequencing that I'm doing of the genetics of the virus itself, it's looking like it's probably a new strain that has not yet been characterized. We've obviously had some fatalities here in Oregon from it. There was actually an English professor at PSU, of all places, that died from it back in '97.
And what about the gal in the south? South is a little bit of South
Not
Oregon,
speak up
like by
PSU,
Salem.
that's anything about their education.
Right? That
The case I worked on.
yeah, the case you worked on.
No, that was actually in Washington County.
Oh, it was. I didn't
Yeah.
know. Okay, I was wrong
Yeah.
on that. So
there was a case. That was about 2 years ago now, a year and a half ago actually, in Washington County, where someone contracted hantavirus, and she actually survived, which is a great thing.
But you need to
Yeah.
tell why. I mean, who found? I mean, it was Lori that discovered.
Yeah,
it.
actually, my field partner, who is studying sort of a different aspect of this, she's not doing the genetics of it, but looking more at ecology and biodiversity and how that affects this, which is it's a really interesting aspect. Don't know if we'll have time for that, but she was working for the State Health Lab, Oregon State Health Lab, there on the PSU campus, and had these blood samples come through from this patient, and everyone had assumed that she had caught SARS at the time. This was kind of around the time of the big SARS scare. And she thought, no, this doesn't look like SARS from the description of her symptoms and all of that kind of thing. And she decided to do some testing. Turned out she had hantavirus. Wow. And so she was in the hospital already at that point. They were already treating her, so they were able to bring her around, and she survived, although there's not any specific treatment for it in terms of antivirals and that kind of thing.
When we're talking about things like this, so one of the big things is this bird flu virus, and we're waiting for the migratory birds to come through and 50% of us to drop dead within 3 days. I mean, is that reality? Is
No,
that...
way overblown. Way overblown. I mean, of course, there's a very, very minor risk there, but as you're probably aware, this kind of bird flu originates pretty regularly within a lot of these bird populations in Southeast Asia, again, as it turns out, because of the way that they keep their, as it turns out, like duck and chicken populations that are like semi-domesticated for their food sources. And there's, it takes a very specific mutation for that virus to be pathogenic to humans. And so it's a fairly rare thing for that to occur. And that one particular strain was definitely of great risk to humans, as it turned out. But it, as we've seen in the media, stayed very localized in Southeast Asia. It never made it over.
And how many died from it? I mean, it was really a small number if you think about the population of
China, where
it was found.
Yeah,
I mean,
it was
really,
a very
really
small number.
Yeah.
I mean, if you were to contract it, yes, your risk was very great.
But you had to be
but
dealing
your
with
risk of
birds
exposure
all the time,
was
yeah.
so low.
Yeah.
But
It made a great story.
The concern is, though, that it's going to mutate at some point, and that
it mutates every year. Every form of flu that we have, every year the new flu that's coming around. Have you caught flu yet this year? Did you get your vaccine for the flu this year? It's always a new type of flu that has come out of this same environment.
We're going to be okay, though, right? Because Iran is announcing all the time that they've solved all these world problems with some kind of new cure.
New science, yes.
Maybe we should talk to them.
We should talk to them. Well, I'm curious, Phil. I mean, what's in terms of your research? You're writing your dissertation right now on this research, and what's next for you? And how does this fit in? I mean, what's next in your career? Do you move to the CDC? I mean, is that the kind of stuff that you're doing, or once
bird
you're
flu in you?
Once you're a doctor, you just all of a sudden your value is only in picking up mouse poop.
Yeah. That's the unfortunate part of getting your pilot higher and deeper. As you get definitely locked into a niche. But the CDC and public health is definitely one avenue I could take, whether it's with a state health lab or something like that. I'm not really that interested in moving to Atlanta to work for the CDC. But,
no offense to Atlanta, but
none whatsoever. But that I'm here in the Northwest. It's just vastly different. So that's definitely one route to stay into public health. I have found through this whole process that I really, really enjoy teaching because I've been in that role as well while I work on my research. And so that's another route I would be very interested in taking. In fact, that's probably going to be the path that I will pursue the heaviest, is to stay in education, in academia. And then there's also more for government agency sort of conservation biology kind of aspect with it. And that relates itself a little bit more to what my partner was studying with the biodiversity aspects of what makes Hantavirus more prevalent and that kind of thing, without going into detail.
And so really isn't kind of the point in her research or with biodiversity is that these animals that carry these types of virus, whether it's Hantavirus this time or something else, but that there is a real reason for why we want to keep green spaces around our areas of our communities, so that the animals stay there versus moving in with us.
That's close.
The environment for you.
That's really close. But really, is what her research has really borne out is that. What we're discovering is that because of the nature of deer mice themselves, they are so ubiquitous and so evolutionarily sort of strong and healthy, and that they can survive in just a vast array of environments. That when you go in and you degrade a particular habitat somewhere, that tends to eradicate the vast majority of species that are already there in a naturally functioning ecosystem, which keeps these kinds of things, diseases and those sorts of things, in equilibrium. So then as you alter this environment and those other species move out, the deer mice tend to take over. They actually explode in population because there's all these new niches now and new space where they can just fill in. And so the higher their population density becomes, the more they exchange the virus within their population, and the higher percentage of infection rate you have in that population of mice, thereby increasing your chances of exposure to an infected mouse or the droppings of an infected mouse. And so that's really a really exciting aspect. It's a little less boring than my side of it, frankly.
It's very cool.
That is so directly applicable to our daily lives and the way we interact with the world, that it's really showing out scientifically that the way we take care of the environment can come back and affect us in actual direct disease forms.
Yes or no? Al Gore, Nobel Prize.
Yes.
Thumbs up. Okay.
Can I first? I want to talk about that.
You don't get to because you're all red state and everything.
I have to say this though. You can nominate anybody for a Nobel Peace Prize. So you could have nominated me for a Nobel Peace Prize.
I did nominate
I'm sure you did.
And
so congratulations to Al Gore and Rush Limbaugh and everybody else that got nominated.
Rush got a Nobel.
Okay. I opened the can of words. I got to close it.
We're with Phil Jones, and I know we have to get going. Our bar boy is like holding up the big signs.
Bar boy's the man. He's
one last question before we go. Yeah. Can you come back and talk about evolution sometime?
Absolutely, I'd love to.
I know we've talked about.
Yeah, that's the other side of your
and
work.
Phil will actually bring, when he does that, a textbook that he received from were they Jehovah's Witnesses in our area?
Yes.
That stopped by our house one day. Phil invited them in, and
of course
they had
he did.
quite the conversation.
Awesome. Oh, that's
and
a beautiful
gave him
story.
The science textbook that they use
in their schools.
Awesome.
And we'll bring it, and you guys can take a look.
We need to do that right away.
That's beautiful.
That's interesting.
It's
That is beautiful.
We are Beer 30
Yeah.
Live with Phil Jones, and it's time.
It is time. Thank you, everybody, for listening. We've got a few, let's see, what other announcements do we have? You can find us at beer30live.com. You can write to us at the show at beer30live.com. You can buy our swag
Buy the shirts.
beer30live.com. Jamie, looking good in olive today.
Thank you.
We need
Smart
to get
people
some long
drink beer.
sleeve
We do. I need to
Yeah.
look into long sleeve.
Email us. We want those.
Yes, definitely email us.
Pete or Mary or Jamie or Shane at
beer30live.com. Bam. Anything else?
Subscribe to the show.
Yeah,
We
definitely
need
subscribe to the show. You can find us at iTunes. Just do a search for beer30live.com, or that link is on our website. And I think with that,
We're out.
bye-bye, everybody.
What are we talking to
What
Phil
about
about?
Yes,
fruit
let's talk about
acetylase?
Yeah, I mean, we have a guest.
Well,
Did you hear? Oh, we have a guest. Oh,
I'm in competitive drinking competition tomorrow.
You are drinking what?
Beer.
Oh,
So I'm kind of in training.
you are. You gotta stretch
So
out.
after this, I'm going to eat some wings and drink beer.